Welcome everyone to the Fireside Management Chat organized by Johns Hopkins Graduate Consulting Club. I'm Jachin, Director of Education, and I will be organizing this year's seminars. So in Fireside Management Chat, we plan to invite speakers with consulting experience or industry experience related to biotech or healthcare to share their insights about their work and career, and that will help us to better decide our career choice, even if it's consulting or not. And today we are very fortunate to have Jenen with us. She is currently a senior manager in market planning in Hopkins, a biotech company developing therapeutic antibodies targeting allergic and inflammatory diseases. So Jenen received her PhD in epidemiology here at Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. She previously worked as a consultant at IQVIA for more than 3 years, where she provided strategic recommendations to clients in the life science industry. Before that, she also worked at federal and state health agencies and a nonprofit health management organization. So she is also a strong advocate for women in science and business. So I first connected with her in a School of Public Health sorority group, where she's very active in posting good jobs and career opportunities for Hopkins alumni. So without further ado, let's welcome Jenen and hear her sharing on the intersection of public health and business. Welcome, Jen.
Great. Thank you so much, Jachin, for inviting me to this talk today. I was in the JHGCC a few years ago, actually, and this organization had provided me the opportunity to learn more about consulting and also meet people. So I'm very honored and very glad that I'll be able to share my experiences today. So feel free to chime in if you have any questions, and we'll get started. So let me share my screen. Okay, so the title for my talk today is Intersection of Public Health and Business, Finding a Niche in My Career. When Jachin reached out to me for this opportunity, I wanted to share my experience that are both personal, but also inspirational. So I thought that I would like to pick a theme that could be resonating with you guys, because I know for a lot of PhD students, I was in your shoes a few years ago, and the academic world felt very large and complicated. And as a PhD student, you were trying to kind of figure out your dissertation topic, your career goal, and you're making a lot of decisions in your life. And that's the decision that I went through in my career and in my PhD years as well. And so it took me some time to get where I am right now. So don't feel discouraged if you're still not sure what you would like to do, or still trying to find a career that works for you. So in today's talk, I want to share a little bit about my background, and then Jachin had shared some initial questions that the JHGCC community would be interested in, including why consulting, why IQVIA, and then why I left consulting and joined my current company at Hopkins. And then I would like to conclude the talk with a few words on finding your niche. Okay. So my career started with a bachelor degree in molecular cell and developmental biology at UCLA. I had, well, I think a lot of Chinese students had a family expectation for going into pre-med. And so that's what I did, and figured that I don't like the working style of, all the rotations and residency and everything that are associated with med school and the medical career. So I actually spent a lot of time in doing lab research in stem cells. And I thought instead of going into med school, I would go into a PhD in some kind of biological science so that I could become like a biological researcher. And then I figured that I actually didn't quite like the lab environment and going into all the, experiments and doing all the work for that. So after I graduated from my bachelor, I decided to take a 1-year post-bac internship program at the Maryland Department of Health because I was interested in public health. And I thought, given my laboratory experience, I could work in a public health lab. That's what I did. And it was back in 2009, during the last pandemic, which was the H1N1 swine flu. So I did quite a lot of testing and sample validation and analysis in the public health lab. And I really like that environment, working for a patient population and then trying to either, prevent or control a disease. So I decided to enroll in the School of Public Health at Johns Hopkins and got my master's degree in epidemiology. So while I was in the master program, I started hearing about this new field in epidemiology called pharmacoepi. So this is a subfield within epidemiology where they use a lot of the epidemiology methods to research and understand kind of the use and benefit of medications in patient population. So I got interested in that and was able to got involved in also an internship program at the FDA. So my career goal has shifted from biological science to public health laboratory and now to a federal agency in monitoring and regulating drugs and medical device. And I thought that would be ideal, working at the FDA would be my dream job. And then after I got my experience at the FDA, I still really like the environment, but then my life changed and decided to move back to the West Coast for a family reason and career reason. And so I wanted to explore other opportunities outside of the federal agencies and had an opportunity to also get an internship at IQVIA, where I had like a summer internship and was able to had some interaction with a team at IQVIA, which helped solidify my decision to work in management consulting after graduation from the PhD program. So I spent a few years at IQVIA and really learned a lot on the job, actually. So IQVIA is a very big conglomerate of corporation. And so they have a lot of different business units. And the one that I was involved in was in the strategy consulting group in the West Coast. So we provide a lot of management consulting, product planning type of work for our clients in various therapeutic areas. And after about 3.5 years, I was recruited to Allakos, which is a clinical stage biotech company in the West Coast. And now I lead a lot of the analytics projects and market research projects to enable business decision making in my company. So as you know, as you can see, this is a long winding road to where I am now. And it takes a long time. And I'm glad that even though I had shifted my career goals, I was able to stay course in terms of, staying involved in public health. And then now I'm adding the business perspectives. So next, I'm going to share answering my first question about why consulting and why IQVIA. So as I mentioned, I was involved at JHGCC while I was a PhD student at Hopkins. And a lot of my peers had an interest in management consulting, and they had their eyes on, the big three, right? McKinsey, BCG, and Bain. While I was researching for my career, and I realized that there are actually a lot of different types of consulting firms, even within the biotech or life science industry. So, you have the tier one big three. These are multidisciplinary firms that they do consulting work in a lot of different industries, right? And then now there are also the secondary, more boutique life science focused consulting companies. And IQVIA didn't come to mind for a lot of people who were interested in consulting, because IQVIA was known for their data, and it is known for their clinical trial operation as well. But their management consulting arm doesn't get a lot of publicity. It's actually the entire consulting team, including both East Coast and West Coast, adds up to about 300 people in terms of staffs. So it's a very tiny fraction within the IQVIA corporation. But what I like about IQVIA is, given their capability throughout the life cycle of a medication, a drug product, for example, starting from research and discovery, they have laboratory science service capabilities who can help clients navigate the different R&D challenges. Then they also have, operation in terms of clinical trial optimization, trial design and planning. They also have a big service group that could also help with real world evidence. So meaning leveraging, the secondary real world patient claims data to support a lot of the evidence generation, all the way to the commercial stage where the management consultants would come in to support a lot of the projects related to preparing, the product for launch, gathering market insights and analytics, and then providing consulting for market access decisions, and then also marketing and customer engagement types of support. So I thought that by joining in IQVIA, I would be able to see the whole spectrum of the entire life cycle of a pharmaceutical product, which is very unique, right, compared to other boutique consulting firms, or even McKinsey or BCG, where they probably only focus in the commercial strategy, or maybe at a higher level at like corporate strategy type of work. And so I got an interview at IQVIA and really liked the culture and the team there. So I just decided to join IQVIA. And for 3.5 years, I was able to get involved in a lot of projects related to real world evidence and then different types of projects in commercial strategy. And so through this experience, I was able to really leverage my public health understanding, right? Understanding the disease, understanding the patient population, understanding the patient journey, and then using that to help support a lot of the business types of consulting engagements. So in terms of business engagements, we have to interact with our clients and then really keep their strategic goals in mind and then provide them with the relevant data and insights that would be useful to drive their business decision making. So I really enjoy my time there in IQVIA, and at the point where I started to really want to find an area that I want to focus on. And there was some organizational change in the IQVIA team back then as well. There were some management change with a few principals leaving the company. And so the business or like the type of projects at IQVIA tend to shift it towards like market access and payer engagement. So it's less diversified compared to when I first joined the company. But that's very specific for the West Coast office that I was in. So it doesn't apply to other office and other areas within IQVIA consulting, but it was a special situation in the West Coast office. So I started thinking about, okay, maybe it's time to leave, and then really think about how I could leverage the consulting experience and really help solidify more of the product implementation and planning process. Because in consulting, we provided a lot of words and suggestions on PowerPoint, but we never see those suggestions or those strategies implemented in the real world. And so I really wanted to get that real world and really wanted to see the impact of those strategy decisions. So when a recruiter reached out to me about this opportunity at Alacos, I started to think about, okay, so now at IQVIA, I was able to get a lot of experience in terms of early strategic planning, understanding the product profile, understanding the competitor landscape, and then helping our clients to define their product profile and value proposition. Now I want to move more towards kind of the operation, organization type of work in the life science industry. And in order to do that, I wanted to find an organization or a company that could provide me the opportunity to work in this stage. And luckily, Alacos happened to be that company where we currently have a product in phase 2, phase 3 clinical trials. So we are preparing for launch. So that means we need to, in addition to doing all the strategic planning, we also need to prepare for our go-to-market strategy, and then preparing and building the team and the systems so that our company and our product will be ready for launch. And so now in Allakos, I was able to leverage my public health background, my consulting skills, and then adding in the business aspects where I would conduct market research and then secondary analytics, and really collaborate cross-functionally to drive the successful execution and implementation of the business strategies. So I'm doing more operation types of work, which means I'm building the teams and then also establishing all the process and systems that is preparing our organization for launch. So we are waiting for the product launch in a year and a half, and after that we'll really need to work on accelerating the product adoption and preparing for the sales of the products. So this is a long journey, and Allakos also provided the opportunity to work in an interesting disease area. So a lot of my peer would probably end up working in oncology, right? Or immunology or something like that, because that's where a lot of the R&D development and a lot of the investments are. But our company's product is in a rare disease space. So there's a lot of underdiagnosed and under-recognition of the disease itself. And so I'm actually doing some disease education for the physicians and patient community for the disease area that we are working on. So that's a little different from other companies where they already have a very defined disease space, and people pretty much know a lot of things about the disease, and they just need to prepare the brands and prepare the products for marketing and sales. Whereas for us, in addition to doing all those branding and marketing, a larger component of our job is actually educating the community about the disease itself, about the diagnosis, about the symptoms, about how to recognize the disease, how to detect the disease. So that's actually very much in line with my interest in public health, right? Helping to improve health in the community. And that's something that I was passionate about. And I'm glad that I was able to do both in my current job at Allakos. So next, I would like to get into a little bit more about my current job in market planning and what that entails, because Jiachen had mentioned that that would be an interesting topic to share. So market planning and analytics is a part of a biopharma commercial organization. So all of these pieces work together to support the commercial development and eventual sales of a biopharmaceutical product. In addition to market planning and analytics, there's the competitive intelligence piece in commercial organization. So that means I have a colleague who actually will monitor all the competitors and really understanding their development and any news they share in terms of their clinical trial progress, their results, and anything related to the competitor landscape, so that we could better position our product. We also have a colleague in marketing and communication. And so that means that team is focused on developing messages and advertisement campaigns for physicians and patients. And as I mentioned, because we need to do a lot of work in disease education as well. So the marketing team has also they also need to work on, different brochures, different videos, educational videos to provide that kind of information to the physician and patient community. Next, we have the market access group. This is a group where they will engage with the payers and negotiate other reimbursement contracts. So getting the drug developed and marketed is only half the battle in the biopharmaceutical commercial organization, because reimbursement is key for these drug products. Without reimbursement, the physicians will not prescribe the medications to the patients, and the patients wouldn't be able to receive them. So my colleagues in market access really need to engage with different payers and insurance companies and really understand their policy, and then really help communicate the value proposition of our products so that we'll get a favorable reimbursement. Next, we also have the sales and operation team. And this is a team that really focus on, sales force sizing, deployment, and incentivization for the field force. So once we have a product ready to be launched, we need to hire a team of sales associates and then have them service all of the customers. And then my team is in market planning and analytics. So that means I am responsible for leading projects related to gathering data and insights to support the business development making. So that means I work with a lot of vendors and then work with data providers so that we could use a lot of the patient claims data, for example, to address our business questions. So this is an area where I thought would be a niche for me, because given my public health background and then my previous experience in, PhD research, working with patient claims, I have a very good understanding about, the limitation, the strengths, and how do you use data to use these large scale data. And I was able to leverage that kind of experience and to support all of these functions within commercialization. Because, for example, when the market access team needs some evidence to support our message in terms of what's the addressable population, what type of patients would be most suitable for our product, how do we define that population, right? I'm using a lot of the market research and then the secondary data analytics to address those questions and provide all this information to my colleagues in other parts of the commercial organization. So I think that finding a niche in terms of leveraging the secondary data analytics skills, and then also being able to leverage my consulting background and then the business strategy skills help me land to where I am right now. Okay, so next, in terms of finding your niche, this is an area that I struggled a lot during my career. And I think by now I could say that I have found a niche. But as you can see in my career journey, it took me a lot of time to actually prepare for that. So my words of wisdom, or something that I wanted to share with a younger self of me, would be these 4 points in terms of finding your niche. So first, take the time to learn about yourself. When I was in PhD program, I had thought about, going into academic research. I had thought about working at the federal agency, and taking the time to actually experiment with different areas and different interests that you have would really help you answer that question. So for example, use the process of elimination. So you might hear a lot of time that when people say, oh, learn about yourself and your interests and your passion. Sometimes it's really difficult at least for a younger me to do that, because there are a lot of opportunities out there and I don't know what I could do and what I would be good at, right? So I use a process of elimination to help me decide. As you can see, I moved from undergraduate doing lab research to public health research, and then now to biopharmaceutical commercialization, right? So the question that I asked myself was, what I am doing right now that I don't want to be doing in 3 years? And what areas in life right now that doesn't really pique my interest and doesn't enable me to achieve my full potential, right? So these are the questions that I ask myself, and you can work the problem from another angle instead of like really learning about yourself and really defining your interests and passions. Use the process of elimination. If you know what you really dislike, then you can help define what you like. Obviously, I also spend some time learning, understanding my own value, and then helping me to define who I was and what my interest areas would be. And so there are a lot of tests out there like Briggs-Myers, Strengths Finders. These are the tests that I had done myself, and you have probably, if you haven't done that and you wanted to figure out what strengths or what personality you have, you could take those tests to really understand yourself. You could also ask people that you have worked with in the past, and then ask them what they found most valuable about those experiences. And even asking your friends and families what they think your best qualities are would be good venues to help understand yourself. And once you understand yourself better and the value you can offer, then you can start making tactical decisions from a place of strength and confidence. So that means now you can really find an organization that provides a platform that could best utilize your strength and values. So as I mentioned, I had made the decision to get into IQVIA because I really like their business model wherein they are able to really involve in the entire life cycle of a pharmaceutical product. And then now to Allakos, where the company provides a platform for me to engage in both disease education and then business operation, and then also commercialization, strategic planning. So after you find all these, after you are able to address all these questions about yourself and then finding an organization, then next is inching your way towards your niche. When I was at IQVIA, right, even though I was given a lot of opportunities to work in different types of projects, I started to feel like I need to inch towards a niche that really helped me define my career value. And and IQVIA, given their business model, didn't provide me that kind of opportunity. So now I need to find another organization to help that process. So even though it might take you some time to find your niche, and it might take you some time to really understand yourself, as long as you kind of have a direction at the end, and then inching yourself towards your niche and inching towards the goal that you have, then you'll get there eventually. So I wanted to wrap this talk by sharing a quote. You have the ability to shine and make a mark in some field, and your job is to find your niche, excel, and build a lasting legacy. So that's all I wanted to share today. And I've included my email address here, and then a QR code for my LinkedIn profile. So feel free to reach out to me to connect. And I'm happy to answer any questions, or please feel free to share your experience as well if you feel like, and feel free to reach out to me after this talk if you have any other questions as well. All right.
Thank you, Jenen. So I have a question about IQVIA consulting. You were talking about that. I didn't know it covered the whole process of drug development. So in terms of the length of your project, do you tend to spend a long time on one project, or was it how long is it?
Yeah, so I meant IQVIA is a very big company. So it has I think by now they have 60,000 employees all over the world. And the team that I worked in is in strategic consulting group, right? So we are heavily more involved in the later stage of the life cycle. So the projects that we work on includes, all these launch readiness, market access, market insights, and analytics. So those projects tend to be more short term. So usually it range from a few weeks to a few months. Whereas other arms within IQVIA, so other business units within IQVIA, they probably have more business projects related to the earlier stage, for example, trial operation and trial planning. Clinical trials, those take a long time. So those projects tend to be more long-term, in a few months to multiple years. So it range.
Yeah, you were talking about the difference between West Coast and East Coast, different position, different places are focused on one strategy, one do you have more comments on that?
Yeah. So one thing that I realized after I joined consulting is actually different consulting companies have different areas that they specialize in. And even within the same consulting company, different office may have different areas of practice that they focus on. So for example, in IQVIA Consulting, we have an office in San Francisco, and then a bigger office in New York, which is our biggest office, and then another office in Boston. So our East Coast office is very strong. So they have multiple principals, multiple partners who bring in projects from all different fields. Whereas in the West Coast office, we are a little bit more limited in size. And when I joined, I think we had maybe 7 or 8 principals. And then maybe 30 to 40 like staff under them. And about the time when I left the company, a couple of the principals have left the West Coast office. Either they, moved to other area within the US, or they just ended up going to different companies. They went to industry or went to another consulting group. So the principals that were left in the West Coast office, they more specialize in market access and payer engagement. So that means the projects that I was involved in started to get more specialized in that area. Whereas probably in the East Coast office, there might be more opportunities to engage in different types of projects. So things could change, like maybe by now, like after a few years, maybe the West Coast office have hired new people, right? So they may have expanded their business focus areas. But I think that's one thing that would be good to find out as you're doing your, research in your career as well as your interview process, because really, talking to the right people in the team, in the office that you are going to work with would be very important to understand. So even though IQVIA, we have, a national staffing model, naturally people just like to work with the people that are in the same time zone, in the same geographic area, right? So that would be something that it would be good to find out as you're deciding on what companies to work with and then what office you will work with.
Yeah, that's really helpful, because like I'm thinking about choosing those offices, like where to go. Like people tend to like to go to big cities like New York, Boston, San Francisco, but like I don't really like those big cities. But I'm also worried that if I choose like small places, I might be more limited to the like project I will be working on. Like Thanks.
Yeah, that's true. Because that's where your network will really be surrounded, the geographic location, right? Like maybe like given the pandemic right now, everything is conducted virtually online. Maybe that's not a challenge anymore. But in the past, when we go out to meet our clients and get new projects, we prefer to work with clients and projects within our area. So we tend to, for the West Coast, we work with a lot of the big company in West Coast, like Jenen Tan, Gilead, Amgen. I know everyone works with them. Whereas in the East Coast, you probably get more opportunities to work with East Coast companies. So I think it might be different for other consulting companies and other consulting groups. But I think finding a geographical location that you like to live in and that do the type of work that you like is something that I would suggest you take into consideration.
Hi, Jenen.
Yeah.
My name is Samuel. I'm a PhD candidate at the School of Nursing, and I'm also considering joining consulting. And I'd like to know more about your work at Alakos. And I wanted to know, what's your typical day like when you go to work? And are there any challenges you still meet today? And if there are, which are those?
Yeah, so my work right now is similar to consulting, actually, because we almost act like an internal consulting group for the company. So whenever my colleagues in other areas in the organization have questions, then they will be funneled to me. And then I will think about different ways to address those questions. So for example, one question my colleague may ask is, okay, looking at all the competitor products, I want to know what proportion of the sales are in one indication versus another, because that will help us really position ourselves in the different indications. So I need to think about now, given the data that we have internally, right? These are the competitive products. We don't have data on those. So we have to venture out to go out to other providers to get those data. And so a lot of it is managing, the vendor relationship, and then providing them in terms of guidance about the business questions that we need to address. And then providing them like a very specific instructions about the results that we want to see. And once they return the results, I need to help interpret them and then really translate those data from a business angle, from a strategic angle, so that they would be something that's actionable for my company and for my team. So a lot of my day is involved in, communicating with cross-functional teams, and then also working with vendors. And then a part of my day is also actually doing the analysis and doing the data interpretation, the data translation, and then the data visualization for the team. So I think it's similar to consulting, where there's a lot of meeting, PowerPoints, Excel, all those things. But now, like, given that we're working with an internal audience, we just need to be a little bit more focused in terms of how we address their business questions.
Thank you. That sounds fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for your question.
And are there any challenges you meet in your work? Typically, like, you were mostly in the health industry, and now you are. I feel like when you talk, I hear a business person more.
Mm-hmm.
The terms you use and the way you communicate. And are there any challenges still meeting in, like, going across the industries?
Yeah, I would say the challenges, the biggest challenges in my career right now is more about the tactical operations side of the business, rather than, my skill set, or in terms of my transition from public health to business, because I had that business preparation in my consulting years. So that transition was not difficult for me. But my biggest challenge right now is because we have a product that is ready to be launched. So there's a lot more operational type of work that is added to my job that I was not involved in consulting, right? So in consulting, we do, as I mentioned, we do a lot of the early strategic planning work. So that a lot of things just sit on paper or sit on PowerPoint presentation, and you can brainstorm whatever strategies that work for the time for that time and for that business purpose. But now the difficult part is, how do you implement those strategies into operation? So now I'm facing the challenge in terms of working with like a Salesforce team, working with the field force team to really provide them with the data so that they could actually go out and to reach out to our customers. So it's a lot of detail work and something that I wasn't familiar with myself, but I'm really glad that I'm able to to get that experience now in this company, so that it will help me prepare, for my future career transition.
Yeah, understand what you mean. So you were more involved in consulting. You were more involved in developing strategy and advising people about what to do. And now you have to operationalize many of such kind of strategies and put them in practice and implement them yourself and evaluate them.
Yeah.
Understand.
Yeah. Thank you. I see. I see. Frank had raised his hand.
Hi, Jen. I have a question about more about your internship experience. You mentioned your, I guess, your foot in the dog. I mean, before getting your full-time jobs, you get some internship experience. And personally, I'm an international student, and from my past experience, I usually get a lot of, I guess, first round interview or maybe second round interview. But then when it comes to landing the internship or full-time jobs, usually the, I guess, the student status plays a role in terms of like securing that internship or full-time job. Just curious if you have similar experience, maybe you can comment on that.
Yeah, so both the internships at the FDA and at IQVIA, I actually received them through the Hopkins network. So that's a benefit of studying in Hopkins. So let me think. So both of those positions, they were actually positions that were brought up by professors in the public health school. So in the Department of Epidemiology, we have this mailing list of like, I think the department admin will send out these like job opportunities to the entire department. And so usually they have like all these different types of work for both internship as well as full-time, and also like research opportunities and those kind of things. So I just follow that email and then reach out to the employer to apply. And so I think because given the Hopkins network and also the jobs that were posted, they were posted directly by the employer themselves. Like they sent out information to the Hopkins professors, and then the Hopkins professors send them out to our department admins. So that means the employers themselves really needed the people. So they were in the position to hire once they find the right person. So rather than, actually going out and then applying online, I think this venue will probably give you a higher success rate in terms of actually landing an internship or a job at some point. But that's a little different from, my whole experience in terms of applying for consulting. Applying for the IQVIA job itself, I went through the online application process actually. And because I think they hire from on campus and, PhD students who are about to graduate, they are more willing to work with international students and also work with students from different majors, from different backgrounds. So if you can, network with people in the organizations that you want to work with. And if you are not able to find a person, or find the right network, even applying for like a consulting job while you're at school will also give you the opportunity to get into the consulting field.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that would conclude our seminar today. Thank you very much for sharing your personal experience with us. I think it really encouraged me to explore more job opportunities. Thanks everyone. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Bye.